Okay, hello.
Well,
We have a bunch of people here. So good. And here. Everybody knows who I am. We have New York in the house. We have Florida in the house. We have Helen, who's an import. Helen, you know I love you. And let's see. So we need to get started because we have lots of cool stuff today. Ruth, can you hold up that book? Deb Shaw is here to demonstrate, and Deb is in that beautiful book. She has 2 tutorials. It's the Botanical Artists Guild, and just a wonderful book. If you haven't seen it, just take a look at it on Amazon. But she is here to do a presentation for us today, and I'm super excited, and I want to go ahead and barrel through everything so we can get enough time for member sharing and raffle and her presentation. Sorry, we started without you. Okay, so for me, I want to thank everybody for their wonderful submissions for the newsletter that is not done yet. I am sorry. About 85% done. I'd rather do it right than fast, which is my excuse, but never mind. Anyway, you should have it this week for sure. Also, the drop in and draw, I inadvertently put it on the agenda for the year, not thinking that that particular day, March 5th, is our take-in day at Cypress for the pencil painting show. So never mind on that one. Another strange note, Rick Forney from Cincinnati has challenged us because they're going to the Super Bowl and apparently we are going to the Super Bowl. Not on my radar, but apparently they're very gung-ho to the point where they are going to do a spot on television regarding the chapter and regarding our challenge. And apparently there's at least a case of chili on the line. And he is apparently so good at PR that the chili company is sending him a case already for mentioning them. So this is a big deal. I don't know who does Super Bowl. I don't, but apparently we are involved. So the Rams better win or I'm going to have to send him a case of chili. But anyway, it was a fun idea. You just hit the wrong note with me. Well, the Bengals have to win or we have to win. One of them's going to win and one of us is going to have to come up with a case of chili. No, it's just he has gotten it, you know, our chapter against their chapter. So he's gotten some good PR and Nationals thrilled. They are just thrilled to death that this is coming up, even though it's kind of an odd segue. Okay. Anybody here excited about the Super Bowl? What?
I'm going to be typically British, but what is the Super Bowl?
Oh, Helen doesn't even know what Super Bowl is. You know, this is an insanity that happens every year when it gets down to the last 2 teams in a certain group of football and they hammer it out. And apparently Los Angeles Rams and the Cincinnati Bengals are the last 2 teams. So that's why we've been challenged by Cincinnati. Yeah, I think she knows that, or she'd have an idea that what it was. Yeah, it's okay, Helen. We don't care. At least I don't. I think I ruined his party when I said why. Anyway, so I'm really glad to see our new faces back again. I hope everybody's doing well. And let's see. We're still looking for someone to take the treasurer post on full time. we will make do, but if somebody gets excited and wants to help, that would be wonderful. Let me see. Anybody have questions for me? We okay? Yes. Take in the money, keep track of the money. Spend it very sparingly, not write random checks just because someone asks. They have to have their name on the bank account. They can't be a family member. There's year-end reporting duties. There's meeting reporting duties. Ruth has done it different times forever. Lupe did it forever. You know, Lupe is trying to juggle IT for the website, etc. And that's pretty much it. You know, I imagine they have systems set up so it's doable. It's a matter of going down and signing somebody up on the account, etc.
Expenses. The main thing about it is when we have a show, making out checks for the winners and the judge and the workshop and everything. And that's about the only time it's really busy. And then membership when that comes in.
Okay, so Helen, you want to jump in now?
I certainly will. Yes, so as I understand it from you guys, you've all decided for the PACO workshop that we're going to be doing the eye. Did I get that correct?
Sorry?
The eye.
Yes, the
Yeah.
eye. The eye is the one that had the most picks.
Cool. So shortly we will be sending out advertising, etc., the costs, and also opening this up to other chapters throughout the US to see who else might like to join in his workshops. We should be over the Saturday and the Sunday, 4 hours on either side, due to obviously time difference. Very exciting. Watch this space, and we will put out some flyers and things for the newsletter as well as MailChimp. The other thing I really want to try and push now, guys, is we will be starting the brand new website shortly, and I would love all your artworks and things. It will go live after we've done Cyprus, because I want to get that information in there as well. But we will be working on that very shortly. So information, images, anything you guys are interested in, just you can message me and CC in Lupe and Sue. That would be awesome. And then the other thing I was just going to say, with the help with the treasurer, is we will be doing a lot more online payments auto, so that will take pressure off whoever ends up being the treasurer, because it will go all through the website and will be logged and accounted for through the website. Memberships, we're going to do tickets, all those types of things. We're going to try and get as mostly done through the website. Workshop bookings, all that kind of thing will be built in again through the website. So that will take off the pressure of trying to keep a paper trail and see who's doing what, because we'll have a digital record of that. And I think that's roughly about me.
Hey, that works. Ruth, are you ready to do a treasurer report?
Not much going on. See, we've our balance, it was 2,340 on the end of November, and now it's $2,549.93 at the end of January. Just a few minor things. Some dues, raffles, and we sold 4 date books for a total of $313.36 as income, and postage a tax kit and payment for the venue. So, and that came to $103.83. So, and then I wanted to urge everybody to let me know about your entries. You don't have to pay until you come and bring the entry in on March 5th. That'll be between 9 and 11 at the Cypress Community Center. But I like to get the programs done ahead of time. So if I just know, you can do it by email even. Just let me know what your titles are, if it's for sale, and what else do we have on there? Yeah, just whatever, how many you have. And we're not exclusively, so many places say has to be done within the last year or the last 2 years. If you've got something that's 10 years old and you've never entered it, it's welcome. So, and as many as you want. So we'd just really like to have a good turnout. And we're back in a gallery again this year. So 2 years ago, we got it all set. We had the ribbons on the paintings. We had the programs laid out, and then everything shut down. So nobody saw the show. This year, we're going to get to see it.
May I
Going to be
just
beautiful.
chip in there that it also doesn't have to be 100% colored pencil. It can have a proportion of mixed media in there as well.
Good point.
Predominantly.
Yeah, 70% I think is what we had on the, unless I'm hallucinating. Okay. All right. Lupe, question?
Yeah. No, what was that? Oh, members' experience with the paywall?
Did anybody have trouble?
Oh, yeah. I saw a few come in. Does anyone have any questions about how you have to pay your dues through the website, which is what we've been doing lately?
Did anybody have trouble?
What? Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it's on the website and it's, yeah, let me try to remember. Yeah, it's a button, it's a PayPal button. And it's very easy. Like if you've paid anything through PayPal, and once that's in, we get all your data, everything that your information, and that goes directly to Karen Taka, our membership person, and it's been working out really well on our side. So if anyone ever has any questions, just email me or Karen, and we'll figure things out.
Perfect. Karen, I'm sorry, I skipped you. It's your turn for
That's
membership.
okay. Yeah, I don't have much to say or to. So currently we have 45 paid members. We lost some renewals, but right now we stand at 45.
Okay. And Gregory Joy we didn't know he was gone and he's back.
He's back.
I hope to meet him someday. So many people I don't know. But other than that,
Everyone's.
that's the news. So let me see, where are we now? Okay, does anybody need to take a quick break before we go into member announcements, show and share? Everybody good? Okay.
Sue, I'm sorry, may I disturb you for one moment?
What's that?
May I disturb you for one moment?
Sure.
We also need to announce that we will be doing this Saturday, I believe it's the 12th, after we'll be doing a meetup. As far as I'm aware, it's still on.
What was that?
The meet on the Saturday after at the gallery.
Oh, the reception.
Correct. That's the word I was
Okay.
looking for.
Most of the people here, I think, have done the reception, except for Mike. Mike and Catherine have not.
So I was just, is everyone okay with that? We're still.
Yeah, the reception's 2 to 4 on the 12th, which is a Sunday, Saturday. Okay.
Right, yeah.
So it's in the gallery and that'll be fun. If you haven't done it and can do it, it's a good thing. That's where the awards come out and everybody gets to see everything. Oh heavens, that's me up there. Ah. Poor Paul having to chase me down. Okay, so anything else before we do art sharing? No, yes, no. Okay, who wants to go first? Rich, Mike, we'll do Mike, we'll do Rich. Oh, what's that? They brought it, they got to show it. Okay, hold on, don't talk yet. Here's this.
Well, I brought two pieces.
Okay. You want me to carry one of them? That one, this one.
Yeah, this one I did. This is back in 1995. I did this one.
Okay.
I drew this when I when I bought a condo as my first venture into real estate, and so I did this. And this is what I used to do before I had the internet to, do research and stuff. So I have a pretty big. I have this giant catalog of images in my head that I can call on. It seems like, it looks like I've been actually looking at a lot of Disney pictures over my lifetime, apparently. So, yeah, but yeah, and actually, this is a character I did for a few years. I was doing Christmas cards and stuff, and it featured Mr. Bunny. So that's him at home, and that little drawing up there at the top there, that's an actual drawing I did for some friends as a wedding present. So, anyways.
I love the andirons.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun doing it. I did this with Derwent Studio pencils. Shortly after I did this, I switched over to Prismacolor just because we could find them everywhere and stuff. But now I'm kind of working away from Prismacolor because I'm sick and tired of breaking the leads all the time. So. And then this one, I also work in pen and ink, and this is one of a series of drawings I've done with my little avatar guy. And I find I really enjoy doing pen and ink and stipple drawings. And actually, I've done the last one I did was 21 by 28. So I do put a lot of time into these things, No, that was in pencil. The one I didn't put the big pen and inks up in that 10 thing, but I think I showed you a picture last time. It was of falling snow through tree branches. Yeah. So anyway, so I do enjoy this method. It's very slow and very tedious, but for some reason that particular method just speaks to me, and I can happily sit there and do this little dot for hours. It's just yeah, exactly. I call it meditative. Some people would call it boring. So. No, I haven't. I've had many people suggest that to me. I'm just not sure how good I do that because I work so slowly. I work so slowly. I'm just not sure if I could meet a deadline to do that. But yes, exactly. But anyways, this is my dual lives. I use microns. Yeah, I used to use rapidographs, but you know what? I got these big clumsy fingers, and I just always wind up just spilling a good amount of the ink, and it's just such a big mess, Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. I did mess up the perspective on the chair though. That's a bit off, but yeah, that's a bit off, but huh? There you go. I blame it on, I blame it on Mr. Bunny. He's got a glass of brandy he has next to him on the little table.
Can I just sit these on the floor?
You know what?
Is-
Yeah, whatever works. I don't know if Paul can see it. Oh,
Okay. For those of you who have lived 3/4 of a century or more, there are probably a few moments in your life that are rather profound. These two pieces represent one of my profound moments. And this giclée, these giclées are of the same subject, but obviously daylight and night, or a nocturnal, as these nighttime photos or paintings are referred to. What is significant about the comparison of the two is what happens to the palette as light changes. And as I mentioned in my letter to Sue last meeting, was there are 7 major changes in light effects during daylight. You can put those down if you want. You can look at them later. We see the world primarily through value. And I brought my little white box to kind of talk about another profound experience that I had with my industrial art instructor, Theodore, or Ted as he was known, Youngkin, also affectionately known as Terrible Ted. His critiques could be, he left a few students in tears, but he was also very inspiring in that he challenged us to see things that we, and understand why we see things the way we do. And my little white box, if I could move it over here to this table for me. The first assignment that Ted gave us was to take a piece of illustration board and make a 4-inch square box, and then to draw it. And this was the assignment for the week. And one of the things that I began to see as I looked at my 4-inch white paper box was how the light source impacted the value scale of the white box. And also the fact that light traveled in gradations across those surfaces. Well, I was lucky that my neighbor was a 7th semester illustration student and was kind enough to explain to me what Ted was asking us to see. And it actually changed how I looked at the world around me in terms of how light travels across the surface and direct and indirect light. I'd like to see our colored pencil group in our society work toward a more excitement in terms of light and how light impacts our palette during either indoor, outdoor, direct or indirect lighting. Yes, we see value. We see the world through value and shape, but it's color that delights our eye. And these, these 7 influences of light can have a pretty profound impact on the palette. So that's my message.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you.
Hey, can I just sneak in there, please?
Sure.
Lupe, I messaged you if you could have a little look at a link. We have a member trying to get in and they haven't got a link.
Okay, who is that?
It's
I'm
Carl.
trying to send it right now.
Thank you.
Had a wrong email.
Awesome. Thank you.
Got it? Okay. All right. So where are we now? We are, oh, wait a minute. I decided to get brave. I'm going to stand way over here because no one has seen this in the flesh and it's not done. But I decided I would be brave and bring it in. It is far from done, but it's my work in progress. So with any luck, I'll have it ready for pencil paintings, but it's going to be a lot of work until then. So I'm hoping to get it mounted on a cradled birch, but we'll see. I have to get it done first and hopefully not have to just send it out and get it framed. But it's the bright, bright yellow. Those are yellow petals from a Tacoma tree. And I used yellow marker for that as the base. So they're a little bit too bright right now, but the idea is to knock it down with overlayers. So that's that. Yes, I'm going to try and replicate as much as possible time-wise Esther Roy's method. At least that's the intention for now. So I don't know if that'll happen ultimately, if I have to go frame it. Yeah, Mike. Ooh, Esther Roy. It's ESTERROI. Go on her website. It's icarusart.com. She does, yeah, she does the beautiful rocks and water, etc. But she's got a very detailed, yeah. So Rich is cluing Mike in right now. Okay, so we are at the point where we can do raffle. Did everybody get raffle tickets after the presentation? Okay, Deb, are you about ready to start? Okay, I think you're muted right now.
Anytime.
Okay, great. If you start that, then we can do the raffle afterwards. And I'm going to sit because I want to watch.
Okay. I'll go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to race through a PowerPoint and then maybe do some demos. And then I want to leave plenty of time for questions. So I guess, Paul, if you can enable screen sharing, or maybe I need to be a co-host or something. Or Phil, I'm sorry. Or whomever, let's see. Or Lupe, I don't know.
At the bottom of your screen should be a share screen button.
I have the share screen button, but it says that the host has disabled participant screen sharing. So
Like that.
I need to be either co-host or.
How about that?
Let's see. Here we go. Now it's happy. Thank you. Everyone can see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. I have to confess, and Gail's keeps reassuring me, I'm really intimidated presenting before this group because there are so many incredible artists here and people from whom I'm learning constantly. And I'll apologize in advance. I'm getting over a bad cold, not COVID, but so if I start coughing, please bear with me. But I am much better. I have a fine art degree. So I started out, and that was back in the day when if you had a fine art degree, you didn't do anything that was representational art. Everything had to be abstract because I'm old, right? And luckily for me, I took a botany course fairly well on before I graduated. And that was just a big revelation. And there was one adjunct workshop in scientific illustration. And I found, because of the emphasis on blind contour drawing in the fine art program, that I was really good drawing while looking in a microscope. So I quickly started doing botanical artwork. And then that led to a job with Caltech, JPL, NASA, doing scientific illustration of all different kinds of I did Dr. Sperry's brain research illustrations, and I did all the graphics for Lucy Jones and her team with the earthquake prediction folks, as well as traditional illustrations. That branched out into, of course, graphic design and web design and information design, which I guess we now call data visualization, maybe because we think we can earn more money if we have a fancier name for it. But now I've come back to my first love, which is botanical art. And that's really what I've been concentrating on. But especially during the pandemic, I find that I've changed how I'm, or not necessarily changed how I'm thinking about a lot of these things, but synthesized a lot of it. And so I thought, since you are all such accomplished artists, that maybe I would share that portion of it with you. So I've started thinking about which medium to use for which project, because I do work in all different kinds of mediums, pen and ink. I love sitting there with stippling, pastels, colored pencils, scratchboard, watercolor, graphite, a combination of mixed media, and then of course all the digital media also, because nowadays scientific illustration, you need to frequently work in Illustrator or Photoshop. So a lot of times, if it's a project, a paid project, or maybe something for a specific exhibition, you have to work within a specified medium. But sometimes when it's the artist's choice, I think that for me personally, I want to go with what the subject demands, maybe not necessarily what I feel like working in at the moment. And I'll show you some different things later. I do love mixing media. And then I also there are some things that I'll work in one medium alone. When I do mix media though, I will put watercolor under graphite. And this is something I've been working on for a number of years, this technique, refining it. There is the grisé techniques of putting your gray undertones and putting color on top of that. For me personally, I know some artists that do a great job with that, but for me personally, things end up looking muddy to me. So I've switched it, and now I've been working on putting watercolor underneath graphite. All of this is a balance between, there are things that I love doing, making little tiny marks. I can sit for hours and hours and hours and only get, an inch. That's great, but there are other things that it's just plain laziness. So there are some techniques that I've been developing that get around the lazy part of me. I've done a lot of ink and watercolor and scratchboard that I will mix with either colored ink or watercolor with a scratchboard, and then watercolor and colored pencil, layering it back and forth. But I find I never mix charcoal and pencil, and I never mix pencil and colored pencil. Those are just things that are jarring to me. Plants, you have, when working with them, you have the Eurocentric traditions of how you depict them. So for botanical art, typically it's on a white background. You don't show the surface of your paper because you want to have a certain amount of accuracy as to what is just the plant, not your paper. There's always the scale and perspective and color matching. And it's interesting because teaching perspective with botanical art is difficult because you're operating within a very shallow space. So that makes for interesting perspective problems. What I love about it are the botanical textures that call for really interesting art techniques to display them. So right now I'm working on a series in watercolor of South African plants, and the ones that I've been given, it's for Florilegium, are little teeny tiny leaves with lots and lots of gray hairs or white hairs on a grayed leaf, and trying to figure out how to depict those accurately within a very tiny space has been a challenge. So I spent the pandemic going back and forth in the car to help family members and not being in my home studio. And as I got back and started unpacking and repacking things, I came up with a list of artistic New Year's resolutions, one of which I work painfully slowly, and I would like to find ways to increase my speed. Not because I feel compelled to be speedy, but it's more like there are so many things that I want to be painting that I just want to be able to work through them faster. In my mind, the world separates into two different parts. There are those people who go to dark values too fast. And then there are those people who never get dark enough. I'm in the latter camp. I have to really concentrate on getting a full value range, whether I'm working in color or whether I'm working in black and white, except for ink. Of course, pen and ink helps that a lot, but I'll talk a little bit about that. I've been doing a lot of experimentation with different media, and I'm having fun, and that's one of the things I'll show you, revisiting successes and failures. As I plow through the drawers, there's a huge amount of things that are not finished, or I abandoned, or I got distracted by something else, shiny thing. And right before the pandemic hit, there was a friend, an artist friend who sent me I guess it's a trend. People were going into thrift stores and garage sales and buying bad art that was there, old oil paintings or acrylic paintings or things that were awkward, and then painting over them. It was just sort of a fun thing that a group of people were doing. And at the time, I remember thinking, well, I have plenty of awkward paintings that I've done in my drawers, so maybe I should go back and revisit those. So that's one of the things that I've been doing. This is a watercolor, just straight watercolor of a rare and endangered manzanita that grows in Northern California on Mount Diablo. There's a long story behind this, and hopefully those trees are still there. They've been through a couple of fires, and I have not been able to hike back in there due to COVID. This is an example of the watercolor underneath the graphite, and it's on vellum. Excuse me. One of the things that I really like about this technique, whether it's paper or vellum, is that by putting down a certain amount of water or specific pigments, I can create an automatic texture when I'm going over it with a pencil. And I'm now
Deb, could you explain vellum to everybody? Because I have a feeling
Oh.
people probably, when you're talking about vellum, they probably mean paper vellum. So
Oh,
could
thank
explain
you.
that?
Okay, yes. Okay, so I do use paper vellum as well, and I do use film. I have one of the last reserves of Chronoflex, I will admit. So if any of you want some Chronoflex, let me know. But vellum comes in two different kinds. There's the drafting vellum that we go into the store and buy, and that is a man-made manufactured product. This is traditional vellum from an animal. This is calfskin vellum. It's a veiny calfskin vellum. And I've also worked with goat, especially for pencils. I do not like the what's the traditional vellum, the one that our diplomas come on, which is made from sheep. The calfskin vellum that I use is a byproduct of other industries. It's sustainably done. Not vegetarian or vegan, I know, but it is a beautiful surface, and it's what has been used for many, many years. You know, the old manuscripts are all done on vellum calligraphy. It's a very long-lasting surface. It has its own challenges to working on it. It's very smooth. It's easier to lift sometimes than to get things on to stick. And I can talk more about that later. But for both paper, hopefully that was enough of an explanation. Ask me questions. But what I've been able to figure out is for both paper and vellum, depending on how much water I use and how much, what types of pigment I use to put it under colored pencil or pencil, I can automatically create certain textures. So this appeals to the lazy side of me so I can just work and have those textures appear automatically, especially for seeds and branches and things like that. We can talk more about that later. This is another one that is a seed pod that uses the watercolor underneath graphite. And this is, again, calfskin vellum. And it was another example of being able to create a texture automatically because of how and where I put the watercolor underneath, as well as being able to achieve some really dark tones. It's a process. It's still slow. It's still a slow process, but it is fun to experiment with what happens as you go along. As I've started working, when we were first starting, I was telling Jane, it was quite a long time ago. I had a workshop with Jane. I used to do colored pencils, botanical art renderings in colored pencil that were as slow and painstaking as everything that I do in graphite and watercolor and pen and ink. Over the years, though, I've found that colored pencil and pencil a lot of times have become more immediate, especially during the pandemic. And I wanted to share some of that with you. I've did quite a few landscapes in colored pencil and toned paper. These were fairly quick, and what was interesting to me were, especially traveling up and down the state, but walking in neighborhoods, these sort of odd Southern California views of things that you get. Here's one, a work in progress that I'm just starting out. The toned paper is nice because it harks back to, I started out as an oil painter before. I still love oil paint and opaque paints like wash, but the solvents, I couldn't use them anymore. So this sort of reminds me of that same oil painting process where we would start with a mid-tone background and work in the lights and work in the darks. I started using colored pencils for quick sketching in sketchbooks and just to try to loosen up. I'm not really fond yet of water-soluble colored pencils. I will tell you, I love water-soluble graphite and I use it quite a bit. But this was a whole, during the past couple of years, doing quick sketches before dinner. You know, you only have 15, 20 minutes. What can you get down? I'll show you my travel kit of colored pencils does not include a whole lot. So of different colors. So it's a quick mixing of colors. And here are some, you know, they're not necessarily very successful. They're fairly awkward, but when you have 15 minutes to get it down before starting to prepare dinner, it's interesting what you come up with. You know, the garlic, I was experimenting with, I do a lot of embossing. A lot of my techniques are kind of blasphemous. It's not what we learn in various workshops, and I'll talk about that too. I tend to do, I'm hard on paper and brushes and pencils. But this is, again, 10, 15 minutes trying to scribble it and get it down. And then, of course, some of them were successful enough that I went in a little bit later and added some more tone and some more color. These were persimmons from a neighbor's tree, excuse me, but it's still that same concept. And I find that, especially when traveling, I can be quite a bit looser with colored pencils than I would be with watercolor. Materials I'll race through. I always have basic materials with me. These are the must-haves. I'm a huge fan of, I don't know, pencils.com is where you can order them. The wonderful Blackwing pencils, the motto is half the pressure, twice the speed. It was a cult item for a while. It was a pencil that was made and used by composers and artists and writers, and then went out of business. And we were all very sad and grieved for quite some time. And some of the pencils went on eBay for $40 a piece. They were so popular. And then there was a Japanese company that bought the rights and started manufacturing them again to the specifications of the original. And they are like the original. So that's the dark gray pencil in the middle. Mechanical pencils, I buy huge quantities of blue tack, which I use instead of a kneaded eraser, but for me, it's a drawing tool instead of kneaded eraser. And of course, there's the never ending, well, I have, it's embarrassing, the quantity of pencil sharpeners that I keep testing out. For the past couple of years, going back and forth, these are just the two little tins of colored pencils that I've been hauling with me. If I travel to a specific place and there's a palette that I know I'm going to be, you know, trying to capture some things out in the field, I might replace some of these pencils with those particular colors I know I'm going to need. But it's just something quick and small that I can throw into. I have a travel kit that I can work out of, you know, for a year, 2 years. It has enough supplies in it that I can just keep going. Because I do work out in the field, you can see the Koran tin has white artist tape put on it that I use in the, you know, to hold things down, but you can't see it also has a bunch of clear strapping shipping tape. And I use that to over specimens in my sketchbook, and it holds the color really nicely. So there's those, these are the things that go with me all the time with a few sketchbooks in addition to the colored pencil tins. The dreaded pencils rolling off the table nightmare. I usually have a piece of cardboard that I've stripped one side off to hold the pencils in place. I usually have 1 or 2 embossing tools with me as well. In my travel kit, though, I'll have all of the grades of pencils as well as some of specialized colored pencils. And then I have little watercolor palettes as well. And I'm sure I need an intervention. I have never met an art material that I haven't wanted to try. And I'm sure all of the art supply stores online and in person can see me coming and going, ka-ching. I have so very many pencils. It's embarrassing. Right now, it's all of your presentations just resonated with me. I can break a Prismacolor point just looking at it. not even picking it up. So far, my current favorites at the moment are the Faber-Castell and the Tombow and Derwent. The Quran I love, but it annoys me that it's a slightly different diameter and I have to fetch out a different sharpener. And that just is so irritating to me. It's just, you know, it's dropped it down the list. But I do use a lot of everything. Like I said, I do have water-soluble colored pencils, although I'm not as fond of those as I am of regular colored pencils. There's a variety of whites. There are specialty pencils that will draw on a number of different surfaces, and sometimes those are successful. Like if I'm in the field, I'm trying to work quickly and I've built up a bunch of different layers and things will no longer stick, those will. And I have a collection of sharpeners. So these are my current favorites that I use, although the Derwent, that was because of the Quran pencil diameter, and the battery just does not have enough oomph. I adore those old Panasonics. If I'm going to use an electric sharpener that are another cult item, I own 3 of them on various desks throughout my studio. You can't get them anymore except when you come across them in like a garage sale or an estate sale. The glass emery board I take with me. It's a great sharpening tool. It was given to me as a gift from a friend who had traveled to Italy, and it was many years before I told her that I had never used it on my nails, that it went right away into my art supply kit. And then when I started giving these lectures, you know, then I had to fess up to her so she didn't see it in a lecture. But my favorite is the Coombe that you saw in the earlier ones at the moment. Again, I think of erasers as drawing tools. The blue tack is my all-time favorite. I think of knives and scrapers and all kinds of other things as drawing tools as well. The white are the new, I'm just been experimenting with them. They're the new ceramic blades that are really nice for scratching through different layers of colored pencil. So I'm just beginning to experiment with those. They're very gentle, and so you can pile up a lot of colored pencil and then scratch through the different layers. You can take things off one layer at a time. So I'm finding those to be really interesting. There are the little pen knives that are right above the delete eraser there on the left-hand side. And this is just an interesting thing. I have been in an airport where they have confiscated my sharpened colored pencils, my Prismacolors. I couldn't convince them that I can't keep a point on them to draw with, let alone to stab anybody. But when I've forgotten and left these little knives in my drawing kit and taken them on board, they have never even been looked at. So just an interesting. And then I have boxes and boxes in storage for all the different pencils, of course. I have different soap dishes and things to lay the pencils out. But for colored pencils, this was one of those things that I found, you know, in the sales bin ages ago, going out of the pharmacy. I guess it was supposed to be for bringing out snacks and drinks next to the pool, or something like that. But it's nice. It has these little plexi holders in there, so I can come up with my palette and throw them in there and carry things around after I've gone through the drawers and selected my particular palette for a painting. For botanical art, excuse me, we do a lot of measuring and counting. And so I have a variety of measuring tools, different rulers and things like that. But I also use a lot of different grids, especially if I'm working under the dissecting scope. And there's, towards the bottom, there's a proportional divider. I think the Germans make the best ones, I have to say. So I can use it to measure a specimen at one end, and let's say I'm enlarging it 3 times. I set it for 3 times the size. One end is the actual measurement and the other end is then the 3 times measurement. So it makes things go quickly. I can put a grid under the dissecting scope. So I have a small grid with the specimen and then a large grid that I'm scaling things up. Taking things apart, I will say if you do a lot of dissection for artwork, it's really nice to make friends with people in the medical field. These are cast off, would have been thrown away forceps used by a vascular surgeon. And they have just these minute fine tips that are absolutely wonderful for small specimens and insects and things like that. Paper, later we can all form a support group maybe and whine about paper. I think the rule is if you find a favorite art supply, it will be discontinued. So all of my favorite papers have been discontinued. I don't think that there is a universal paper that meets my taste. To me, the optimal paper, has to accept enough graphite and enough colored pencil to get your smooth tonal values. I don't like, for watercolor, I don't like it to be so absorbent. There's some papers that, it's like painting on paper towels. I prefer a very dry brush technique. I essentially draw with watercolor. So if there are papers that have been specified for workshops that I just hate for watercolor, I have found that they're okay for graphite frequently or charcoal. But I do want a paper that can accept a lot of abuse and get really good dark tonal values. Sometimes the back is the better side of things. And I do like getting large sheets. I did buy a roll of Arches hot press, 10 yards, and found that there are problems with the paper. Actually, it was not manufactured well. So everything, all of the techniques that work on paper, work on vellum, the calf skin vellum as well. Vellum comes in a lot of different colors and a lot of different surfaces. But I thought I'll finish running through real fast and then we'll go to demos. Many of us start with graphite for at least an initial drawing. So I use everything from 10H to 10B. 10B is like drawing with a stick of butter. 10H is pretty much an embossing tool as far as I'm concerned. Of course, we do the same value ranges for colored pencils, and there's an infinite variety of colors. I draw directly on the surface most of the time. I tend not to trace. And when I draw, I do not use an eraser. So I know a lot of people just shudder at the fact that I'm drawing directly onto the surface that I'll be working on later. And I make a lot of mistakes as I'm going. I don't erase them until right before I'm going to actually start working on watercolor or colored pencil. And the reason is just my own shortcomings. If I make a line that is in the wrong spot and I erase it, pretty much almost 100% of the time, I will then make the next line in the exact same spot. I don't know why it is. So if I make a line in a wrong spot, I leave it there. So then the next line, I can see where I was and I can make the next line in the correct spot. So my working surface will look quite messy. I generally use a softer pencil to start sketching, like an HB or a 2B. I find there are some times that I need to trace things, work up things in sketches or take things out of a sketchbook. I do find though that if I have transferred something or traced something, that I have to go back in and redraw it because it looks very staid and boring once I've gone through the process of transferring or tracing. And for me personally, you know, the nice curves and subtleties of a line, I seem to straighten things out when I'm going through and tracing or transferring. So I'll work in a fairly soft pencil and then go in and refine with a harder pencil very lightly. And then all of that softer pencil erases cleanly, nicely. And then I start the watercolor or the pencil drawing. You know, there are other techniques. I have a 2B and a 4B graphite paper that I've colored up that I stick in and bring out to the field in case I want to use it as transfer paper. I don't like the transfer paper that you buy in rolls because it's too waxy and it might interfere with something that I'm deciding to, a medium that I'm deciding to use later. I have an obsessive compulsive way that I hold a pencil. I've had some, you know, damage over the years for too much computer work and too much pencil work. So I learned how to have a very relaxed grip, which also improved my drawing skills. I will break a needle point. I do use them. I can make beautifully sharpened pencils, but the chisel down at the bottom is my preferred pencil sharpening. And so I obsessively, you know, it sounds like product placement. I obsessively hold the brand name up on a pencil because that way I know that that's the broad side that I'll use for shading or laying down swaths of color. And then I can turn it over and use the sharp end for very sharp lines. And I do that whether I'm using a clutch pencil or a colored pencil or graphite pencil. It doesn't matter, it's all the same. I generally work in a loose ellipse, starting with the broad side of a chisel. A lot of times I will use a feathered staggered line, and this is my favorite technique in watercolor actually. So that's why I show it here. And it's nice because I can put in different colors or different shades of a watercolor in between each of the lines. I'll do the same thing with colored pencil, and it creates quite a lot of optical color mixing in what I'm doing. There's of course always cross hatching and contour hatching. I personally, I can do cross hatching and have had to for specific jobs, but I infinitely prefer contour hatching, you know, following the shape of the form. So this is a book, it's in Scratchboard that I did with another artist. We divided the illustrations in half, and Cynthia does beautiful, absolutely spectacular cross-hatching work. And all of her illustrations were done with cross-hatching. And mine were all done on the right with contour lines instead, which I always thought was an interesting illustration. I'll show you, I do a lot of different marks and use that to create surface textures. And then a lot of my techniques, I'll try to wrap up here really quickly. A lot of my techniques are for staying out of my own way. So like I said, I tend, for a long time, I had a tendency to not get dark enough values. And I think that's a problem with a lot of the pencil graphite work that I see. So in my quest for that, I do a lot of different layering. So to get a very dark value, I'll start layering soft pencils, quite a few soft pencils, and then do a hard pencil for burnishing. I do the same thing with colored pencil, a lot of dark tones, and then layering maybe with lighter tones. But most important for me is, you know, I can very happily start getting into the meditative, you know, creating textures and marks. And I can find then I've gone over my reflected lights. So in the quest to protect myself from myself, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put very hard pencils down in the reflected light area, or maybe the Verithins, or very light tones if I'm using colored pencils in where the reflected light is. And that way I know that it's protected, because if I'm going through with my dark shadows or my core shadow on a round form, then it will never, even if I run over the reflected light area, it will never get too dark. I've protected that area. I love embossing tools, and I'm gonna race through this and do a little demo with that. My family and friends know that if they've left something out that might make an interesting mark on a piece of paper, it's fair game. I will nab it. But this is the traditional process that I'm sure all of you use. And I'll go in, usually I'll put in tones before, but this is really the only time that I use one of the needlepoint pencils, is to go in and correct things if I've done embossing. But they're all different total values to achieve. So really my goal with the embossing tools is, again, it's fun, first of all, but it also appeals to the lazy part of me, where I want textures to come up instantaneously. And then I have all different types of lifting tools, not only the erasers. And one of the reasons I like the blue tack so much is not only is it tackier, but it holds its shape more. So I can mold that into a specific shape and use that shape to lift out frisket, wax paper, different types of tape, all different kinds of things to take things off. And then there are the other items that I have. So I don't know why, but for the last couple of years, I've been painting and drawing things that are very small. As it seems that my eyes get worse, it seems like I'm drawing smaller and smaller things. So my studio has, it looks like a football field in here. Talk about Super Bowl. I need a lot of light and a lot of tasks lights, especially with the dissecting scopes, and a lot of magnification. So I have all different kinds of things that I use to magnify. One of the best things that I did a little bit before the pandemic hit was my optometrist was willing. I was able to go into his office with my drawing board and a specimen, and set up in one of his back rooms. I've worn glasses since I was 4 years old, but he prescribed special glasses for me that have the exact distance that I usually work with a specimen and my artwork. So that was magnificent. That's my favorite magnification tool at the moment, although that gets problematic when I'm working huge. I have the easel behind me and sometimes I do great big work. And if you want different websites or different links or information, I'm happy to send that out. But I will stop sharing here and go to my camera. We can do a little bit of demo. Like I said, I think that let's see if I can go. I'm trying to get this large on can everyone see my artwork there? Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Let me know if you can. So I do have, I have sheets of paper that I use for protecting, sometimes thick sheets of paper. I have, gloves that I wear. And I have, for when it's hot, I have, when there's an old sweatshirt, I'll cut the sleeve off so I can wear the sleeve, just the sleeve, and not be too hot. This is one of the different experiments that I've been working on, getting the old work back out of the drawers and playing with. This is a series that I had started, or painting that I had started, of the huge kelp that we have here in Southern California. And I had huge, gigantic, tall jars of this with ocean water, you know, big buckets of ocean water and seaweed. The place smelled really amazing. My family puts up with a lot, I have to say. But this was the first study that I did, and you can see it's fairly small. And I was having problems with it. I thought that I'd gotten, you know, colors and techniques down, and I started a huge one, life size. So it was 5 feet tall, 5.5 feet tall. And I hated it. It wasn't working, and I abandoned it. So I found this study. I still have the 5-foot one somewhere. I had this study, and after doing the quick drawing before dinner, I thought, now this is a watercolor background. I thought that I was going to do it all in watercolor. But one of the things that I really didn't like about it in watercolor, it got the translucency, but it didn't get that rubbery feeling. And that's what I'm interested in exploring now, in terms of choosing a medium or mixed media to suit the subject. So when I found this in the drawer with the watercolor base, I thought what it really needs is kind of a waxy colored pencil to go over it. So I've started, you know, some of this is still just the watercolor, but a lot of it, and it's kind of hard to tell, which I'm really enjoying. There's a lot of it now where I've started going over it with colored pencil. So this looks very different over on this side, where you can see where I've started with the colored pencil. But there are a lot of areas, like this has a lot of colored pencil over it that I've started building up, that you can't really tell that it's any different from the watercolor versus the colored pencil. Here you can kind of see the colored pencil more, but there are a lot of areas that I've started working in with the shadows and building up layers that you really can't see any difference between the watercolor and the colored pencil. So I'm just going through now with very broad areas and broad strokes to put in the initial colored pencil layers. I am as slow in colored pencil as I am with watercolor, just working on building up a lot of different layers. This one is fairly monochromatic. You know, my color mixing comes out of my fine art education. And so it's a lot of times I'll put very bright, shocking colors, the undercolors that I can see underneath. They might have little or nothing to do with the local color that is the subject, but I always know that I can use complementary colors or local color over the top to pull everything together. And that way I have a lot of different layers that you can look through. So for this, I'm just going through, it was so monochromatic. I'm just going through as an experiment to see what I can build up with colored pencil to see if I like this as a finished drawing. And then as the ocean gets warmer, maybe go in and get more seaweed and start this again, because I do want to go back to this. So I'll see
Yeah,
how.
Are you referencing a photo now, or are you just doing it from memory?
Now a little bit of both. So that's a really great question. Thank you for asking that. I infinitely prefer, and I am better at working from life. If I can have something in front of me, I do my best work that way. I also take a bazillion reference photos because most of what I work on is going to die, and some of it's going to die faster than others. I keep a lot of it in the refrigerator. My family knows to ask before they eat. But I'm the daughter of a public health nurse, so that's always been, in the family. You ask before you eat. So the reference photos that I take, interestingly enough, when I draw something, I almost never, I need to get better at this, but I almost never take a reference photo that exactly matches what I've drawn. So a lot of it, I'm looking at reference photos. I might have hundreds of reference photos, but I'm still needing to turn things in space or figure out. So I have a bunch of reference photos of this, yes. But they're all different than, so here, let's see, there's one of them that I have here. Let's see, can you see this? There's a whole bunch of them. And, so I can see how these are looking that I'm going to use for the back, but it's not the same thing, right? So I'm having to think about it as I go.
Deb, that helps because we can tell what you're going for.
Oh, good.
As far as the depth and the transparency and things like that.
So, yeah, so and part of what I didn't like about this, I'd had the very top sprig, and then what I was going for was, and I have a bunch of these, what I was going for was the feeling as these are in the ocean. So I wanted to have a lot of these in the background. That might not work to have the top right in the foreground and the bigger ones in the background. But that for me right now is a secondary concern. I can revisit the composition and the story that I'm trying to tell about this plant later. Right now, I want to experiment and see whether or not I can get the technique down. And to that end, I don't necessarily care which colored pencils I'm using. Some of them might be old ones that I should be tossing because they're, no longer light fast, and we know that now. But I don't really mind. I just want to figure out the technique. This to me is kind of a throwaway piece and an experiment. What's interesting too about the reference photos is it took me a long time. I don't know if you can see, there are some big bubbles here. And it took me a long time when I was doing the initial studies to figure out that I couldn't put these in fresh water because what it would do is start blistering, that I had to haul up cold ocean water, which wasn't very clear. So for some of them, for trying to get it down quickly, I would still put it in fresh water. This is a 3-foot vase. And you can see I have all different kinds of washers and weights to hold it down to the bottom. It was a challenge. So that's part of my ongoing experimentation and challenging myself to pull some old work out and see what I can do with it. I have a bunch of these things. It's easier for me to show, it's interesting to show, trying to show things. And here I can enlarge this. Hopefully you can see it better. I should have enlarged it for this as well. If you want, I can go back to this later. It's easier a lot of times for me to show things in graphite rather than in colored pencil, because with colored pencil, it's hard for me to light it for some reason. I've been experimenting with all kinds of things with lighting for the subjects. But this is, as far as embossing tools go, I have all different types of tools. And here, I'll grab a a lot of what we do perspective wise, when doing plants, is on a minute scale. You're talking about perspective. For instance, if you're talking about hairs that go around a stem, which is a cylinder, it's always a problem because you have these hairs in the middle that you're looking at just the point of them, right? So you have a dot. Let's see if I can do this. You have a dot. And then as the hair goes around the stem, on one side you have it's dark. On the other side, it might be light. And you have the perspective that changes as the hair goes all the way around the stem. So I can use different embossing tools to go through. Let's see, I have this desk now covered. It's not my normal organization. It's covered with both pencil and colored pencil. But if I've done embossing, because I have very light to white hairs, those will show up and I can put them in perspective. And then later go over with harder pencil to burnish it. I have a lot of colored pencil blending tools and pencil blending tools. I tend not to use them. It's just a personal thing. I know people who use them really, really well, but for me, it's, I always feel like I need to go to the eye doctor, that surely my glasses prescription, something's wrong with it. Things look too blurry. I guess I just need to focus more on sharper lines. So, and I'll go through and put in a tone. Like for instance, here's a 9H. If I want to emboss a specific tone, I do the same thing in colored pencil. And in fact, I do the same thing in watercolor. I'm beginning to figure out finally, after all these years, that my techniques are the same regardless of medium. I just find a way to do the same thing in a different media. So here's where I might be able to develop textures with, I'm trying to go very dark here very quickly so that you'll be able to see it. But I can develop very interesting textures depending on how I use the pencil. And you can see where I did the 9H. It's never going to get particularly dark. I started this dandelion. Luckily, there's a never-ending supply because I keep doing things like sneezing. So the dandelion that I have here on my desk is no more. It's scattered all over the desk. But again, I can go through and put in different tonal values in how these little seeds are coming away and reflecting, and then put in a background or different shades to get the entire form. I started this in colored pencil as well as pencil. I had a bunch of blueberries that seemed ripe for drawing. This is the level, and I don't even know if you can see this one. This is probably the darkest I get. By the time I have my final drawing, it's light enough that a lot of times people will say, how can you see that? I did transfer this, and this is the crude transfer here, just because I wanted to do this in both colored pencil and graphite. For this one here and the start of this one, you can see the lighter areas are where I put a very hard pencil, so I didn't have to worry. I could just color over them, and the bloom and reflected light stayed. So I'll use the same technique for botanically, what they call glaucous, you know, that bloom that you get on grapes and things like that, or hairs, or any of those light veins on dark leaves, that sort of thing. Here's one that I'm starting. And, you know, I started one, let's see, it's here on my desk somewhere, in colored pencil. Again, this is just the transfer from the same initial drawing. And, you know, I have to say, with colored pencil, I am so very slow, but one of my new favorite colors at the moment, the Tombow Sallow. What a great color. I definitely, my favorite colors are typically the odd ones, but this is the sort of thing I've gone through, and I've put down white or a light gray, and I'll start putting down just even randomish seeming colors, maybe, you know, a red blue, you know, different colors in the darker areas, almost always going with contour lines in the direction of either the growth or the contour. And then later I know that these bright patches will show up as I go over it and keep building it. So there are all different kinds of samples here. If you want to see more or have me demo anything in particular, and or I can answer questions, I want to make sure that I'm not going over time, because I know everyone's been sitting for quite a bit. Are there any questions?
I think you've certainly given us a wide variety of information. Everything I wanted to ask, you answered.
Oh, good. That's good. Okay.
I haven't tried the graphite over the watercolor or over the colored pencil. I've done it graphite underneath, and I did find it to be muddy. So.
It does make it, okay, here I've turned, I didn't mean to turn off the video. I'm transferring back from the camera. There I am. You know, it's interesting. When you put the graphite over the watercolor, or even colored pencil over watercolor, the watercolor makes a really nice base, and you can see through it. And it still retains the luminosity of the color. Whereas if, for me, and I don't know why, if it's underneath, it just makes everything look sad. It's just, everything seems to have a very monochromatic, excuse me, toned down, depressed. It looks depressing to me. So it's a lot of fun to switch it up. And it also gives me a lot more freedom to use even some bizarre colors underneath things. Because then you know you're going to have things on top.
Deb, is there, I guess one of the things that Gail has brought up a long time ago about botanical drawings. I mean, is there a guideline as to what you have to get down as far as the actual piece itself?
Yes and no. So if it's a traditional botanical piece of art, The goal is scientific accuracy. You have to be absolutely accurate, and that's why there's a lot of counting and measuring going on. You want to show all of the parts of the plant and all of the life cycles. So if I'm doing a scientific plate, you show the flower taken apart and the seed taken apart, and all the different parts of the plant. And then you don't want to show the texture of your surface, because anything that a botanist looks at in that plate should be a factor in helping them identify the plant. So any texture that you show should belong to the plant, not to your paper or film or medium. If you're from the US, you tend to light everything from the upper left. If you're from the UK, for some reason, the tendency is to light everything from the upper right. I don't know why. I would think that that would be a right-handed or a left-handed thing. As botanical art has evolved, contemporary botanical art has evolved to become more of a plant portrait rather than showing all of the parts of the plant through the plant life cycle. So a lot of the same rules apply in terms of showing the texture of the plant, not the paper, being rigorously scientifically accurate. But you find, for instance, you might show just one part of the life cycle, or, I'm particularly attracted to dead things. So, and that's actually quite nice because they don't then die on me on the table. So you can just show one part of the plant life cycle, or maybe you want to show insect damage, but it's more of a portrait of the plant rather than showing what the species looks like. But it's still, it's given people a lot more room to experiment. So for instance, traditional botanical art, you always had a white background. You didn't have anything that would interfere with what you were viewing about the plant. Now with contemporary botanical art, people are experimenting with different colors of backgrounds, or black, or mottled backgrounds, or things like that. So it's interesting to see where it's going to evolve. I'm hoping this year to develop, I've long had an idea of wanting to use a different type of perspective. We've been using Renaissance perspective for plants for a long time, and I've started experimenting with using some more modern perspectives, like what we use for scientific illustration for mechanical parts, or isometric perspective, or spherical perspective. So we'll see what happens with that.
So in everything that you talked about is the because I know quite a few people that have the book Comprehensive Guide to Botanical Art Techniques. Is pretty much all that you talked about right now, is that in there too?
I think it's pretty much all in there. It is really a very comprehensive book, and it's I've been thinking, I should open it up and start at page 1 and work all the way through it. All of this is in there. It talks a lot about not only the different techniques, but the sort of viewpoint of what botanical artists are doing. It's very much concerned with the traditional botanical art, which means not digital and no photography. There are different places in botanical art where you have people, like for instance, if I'm doing a scientific illustration, now a lot of times they specify that it needs to be vector art. So I am working on the computer. I don't work on the computer any differently than I work on paper. I have a digitizer tablet and I'm drawing it the same way I would do on a piece of paper. But for botanical art groups, a lot of times they don't accept digital artwork or photography.
So I have another question. and I know when we all start art, we start with the cube and the sphere and so on. So we know how things are made or what, they're made. So like the blueberry, that was really interesting how when you drew it, you had all the different like sections of the blueberry. And then when you showed the graphite one, it was drawn and you could see the actual different layers of the blueberry and all that stuff. So in your learning or whatever, I mean, how would you teach somebody that they have to understand what they're drawing and so on and so forth?
We start out with all the same, just the same tools, the cone, the cylinder, and I can show you, I have just tons and tons of drawings of all of those things. Cones, cylinders, squares, all of those shadings and how that form presents itself. Until you understand that, you can't apply it to any object, natural or otherwise. I take liberty, but it's still all the same. So if I'm teaching it, you put in the form first. So even if it's a leaf that's really variegated, some of these leaves you have white and green parts, you would still put in all of the form first and then put in the details. Right now I can kind of skip ahead several steps, but I'm still going back to that every single time. When I learned to draw, and I still kind of do the same thing when I teach, it was a 6B pencil, no eraser, just so that you really got that right there immediately. And lately I've been turning to other types of, we used to have all of the, wood blocks and styrofoam and different things so that you could draw the different forms. Lately, before COVID, teaching intro and graphite, I was using yogurt covered pretzels and dark chocolate candies because you could eat them after you drew them. So that was incentive, right? But that had that same sort of challenge of how are you going to get that form on a white object versus a dark object, a matte finish versus a shiny surface.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, you have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it makes sense, and stuff to me. And I think it's always good to have somebody go over it again and, talk about it too. So, because we all forget sometimes when we're working 2 hours, 3 hours, it's like, whoa, something's wrong with my image. And I know it's a sphere. What did I do wrong?
Exactly. Well, and I do that all the time. And it's why I like, I belong, well, we haven't met since the pandemic started, but I belong to a small group. We hire a model and we draw from the model, and all the rest of them, the human form informs their artwork. They're all professional artists. One of them, whose studio we meet in, draws life size on a roll of arch paper and charcoal. They're incredible drawings. I find drawing people incredibly difficult, but it's really good. It informs there's nothing like trying to draw a person in a pose for exercising foreshortening techniques. And then I bring that back to, a little tiny plant, and it makes a difference. So yeah, I have this idea that learning something, I tend to spiral in, I have to go over the same subject over and over and over again, no matter how much I think I know it, because I pick up something new every single time. That's why I love taking beginning workshops, because it's like, oh, yeah, I know I heard that, but I didn't assimilate it.
Right. Thank you.
Gail knows that I have a phone full of dead leaf pictures. Like, I took another one. So she has to look at those a lot.
Yes, I'm known for drawing dead and ugly things. I prefer to think of them as underappreciated. But
Perfect.
yes, and Gail does beautiful dead things. I love them. In fact, I have a studio right now filled with fascinating dead things waiting to hit the drawing board.
We are actually at 12 o'clock. Does anyone else have questions before we end off? I think we're good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Very much. It was an honor to be here. And like I said, very intimidating.
No, you did a beautiful job. And the cold was not noticeable at
Oh,
all.
good.
And we're going to quickly do our raffle and end off. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Sharon, I have your tickets. All right. Thanks, Deb.
Thank you, Deb.
Okay, everybody got their tickets? Okay. All right, I'll pick the first one. Okay, last three numbers, 153. Yay. Why don't you just set it aside so it doesn't get mixed in here and pick out another one for me so we can go fast.
What did she win, Sue?
She's picking now. She has a table over there to pick from. Okay, next one, 134. All right, Rich. Set it on the table. Pick another one for me. 114. Okay, I'm going to pick for Sharon. Whoop, wrong one. Okay, Sharon.
Yes.
Since I don't want to mail anything but a pick number 4, 5, or 8.
5.
Okay. So you have a surprise gift card in here.
Oh, yay.
I'll tell you in a minute how much you got. Okay, next person. One, 167. Yay, a pick. Have one out of here for me. Just, yeah, just hold it, hold it. 1176. Anybody? 1176. Oh, good. Okay. Just leave it on the table and pick out another one for me. We're going to go fast so you guys can go do lunch. Okay. 1181. All right. One, 186. Okay, grab.
Hey, Sue?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I mention that the Botanical Artists Guild of Southern California has a Day of Botanical Art coming up, and we do have a colored pencil artist teaching?
Please
Thank you,
do.
Gail. Thank you.
I think there's 2 watercolor sessions as well.
shortened it. Last year it was 2 full days, but we have a wonderful lineup. And it has to do with medicinal plants and a variety of artistic techniques. And again, Nina Ansi, I think is how you pronounce her name. She is a Southern California artist as well. She teaches all over the place, but she's one of the artists presenting. So what I could do is put the link into the chat, as well as send it to you if you don't mind sending it to the membership.
I'll do that
And-
now, Gail.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Oh, you have control. Never mind.
Sounds good. Number 1127.
Thanks, Deb.
Thanks, Gail. And Deb. 1127. Anybody? Yeah. Okie dokie. We still got more goodies. One 1197. Just leave your ticket on the table and grab another one for me. The goodies. 1182. Okay. 1137. Yay. Go ahead and leave it on the table and then another one for me. Oh, 1136. Is that you too? No. Okay, 1136. 36. 36. You were right the first time.
Calling all my numbers.
All right. 1111. Okay, Sharon. 4, 7, 1, or 6.
7.
Okay.
Is that something you can mail?
Yeah. 1191.
I know.
You go ahead and you're just gonna grab another one. Somebody's gonna win. Yeah, Gary did a lot of donating the last 2 times. One 157. Okay. Now, the portfolio is also available. One 171. Go. Who hasn't won anything yet? Anybody want to go? All right. We still have 2 books left. 1125. Is that you? One 121. Is that you again, Rich? 1121. 1121, is that you, Rich? Nope. No 1121. It's Sharon. I'm not mailing a book, but courtesy of Betty, I have another gift card. So Sharon hit the gift card jackpot. Okay, that's it for now. All right, thank you all. Appreciate y'all showing up, Zoom and otherwise. Did we get all of the names down of everybody here? Okay. I'm running out of gas. How about you guys? Thanks very much for everything. Really appreciate your help, the long trip, and all your efforts. Love you guys. We'll see you next time. We'll keep you updated, and I promise the newsletter's coming out this week. Hold me to it. Come to my house if you don't see it. All right.
Sue?
Bye all.
Sue, can I say something?
Sure.
I just want to say thank you to Deb first for the
Yes.
presentation. And I want to thank you, Sue, for keeping the chapter going after, I stepped in. So I just wanted to say thanks a lot. I've said thank you to Sue many times, but
Well,
just
much
want to thank you
appreciated.
and to the board and
Well,
to
I
Helen.
appreciate your backing me up and giving me such good wishes and a good example.
Well, you're doing a great job. So
I
I hope
appreciate
people are
it.
thanking you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Email or call if you need me. Take care.
Thank you, Deb. Great job. Thank you.